First of all, I would like to tell you how much I am happy to be back in Système after 5 years, and how much I am proud to have been invited by the Institute to present a paper about Lachen. Then I am going to present this paper about Lachen, a village which I've studied in a geographical way. I've undertook my PhD field work there from January 2001 up to November 2003, while sitting in village, in Lachen village itself during winter and in Tambu in summer, following the major part of the population. Then the village of Lachen, which I'm going to talk about, is situated in North Sikkim at an altitude of 8,838 feet. For those of you who don't know much about Sikkim, we are here today in Gangtok. Here is Chungtang, which is the main bazaar which permit to go to the Lachen Valley or to the Lachong Valley. Here, 29 kilometers upper, there is Lachen, and here is Tango. I have chosen to undertake a very precise study of this village because it seems to be unique in many ways. The inhabitants of Lachen have developed their very singular way of living and administration. This is particularly true, and this is the question I am going to develop today in the system of production here, principally based on agro-pastoralism and in the administration system. The inhabitants of Lachen are shifting and cultivating different places all over the year, following seasons, with classical practices of summer and winter pastures. But Lachen is very original because all the population is moving with the cattle. Then, since the closing of the border with Tibet in 1959, which is situated at about 50 kilometers from Lachen Pass have to formally reorient their economic practices before principally based on trade between Tibet and India. However, in 2003 and still in 2008, there remain a transhumant population to whom agriculture and breeding belongs the main activities. The village's activities are here totally managed by a very singular local governance system, which is called Zumsa. In Lachen and Lachung, the Panchayat system haven't been adopted, and the Zumsa, which has been officially recognized by the central government in 1985, plays a very important role and constitutes the pillar of the society. It is a political and administrative organ which deals with territorial organization, natural resources control, social cohesion, and care of inhabitants' activities. Nowadays, and primarily since Sikkim had been annexed to India in 1975, Zumsa and the whole Lachen Pass society had to face an increasingly strong external pressure. Its capacities and its room for maneuver are more and more limited, in particular with regard to the management of the patrimony and the management of the territory. The systems of production are thus in full evolution, and we'll try here to make the light on what is the present and what can be the future of Lachen society. First of all, I'm going to make a presentation, very general presentation of Lachen, while and vegetation. First of all, we have to precise the etymological meaning of Lachen. It means big pass, Chen meaning big and La meaning pass, in opposition to small pass, Lachong. And this is referring to the geographical patterns of the area, which were permitting to cross the Himalayan range through the Kongrala Pass. We can here also precise that at the beginning, Lachen was called Lamte, which means above the road. The Lachen Valley, that we can see here, as the study turns mostly on a valley rather than a village, extends on approximately 80 kilometers from Chungtang in the south to Tsolamo in the north. From south to north, altitude varies from 6,230 feet to more than 18,000 feet, thus going from the temperate to the alpine floor, where are situated the high altitude pastures. This map is to show the ecological zones of the Lachen Valley. Then here is the lowest village under the Lachenpa control, which is called Menchidang. This area here, up to Chepteng, belongs to the warm temperate zone. This one, where is situated Lachen village, belongs to the cool temperate zone. This one, where is situated Tangu, belongs to the subalpine zone, and the upper level belongs to the alpine zone. The south of the Lachen Valley, where the hamlet of Denga, Latong, Selepmu are located, altogether it's about 10 hamlets, belongs to the temperate zone and constitute for the population because of the coolest climate, the wintering area. Lachen village is located at around 15 kilometers above this area, approximately 28 kilometers from Chungtang, on the eastern slope and is surrounded by steep slopes. The climate is rather hard there. The temperature not is exceeding 40 Fahrenheit in winter and 60 during the hottest months. The wet season is marked with ceaseless rains of monsoon, extending from mid-May up to the end of September. However, because of wind, sometimes violent ones, the valley constitutes one of the driest areas of Sikkim. At about 20 kilometers on the north, the hamlet of Yatam, what we can see here, Samdong, Talam, Kalep are located in the subalpine floor. The climate is rooser and the vegetation is sparser again. Altitude is around 11,500 feet. Tangu region, where are situated the hamlet of Toga, Tangu, which we can see here. Biamze belongs to the alpine floor. The climate is very dry and cold there, and snow is present more than 6 months per year. The vegetation is very short and only some forest residues remain. The north of Tangu corresponds to the southern extension zone of the Tibetan Plateau. We can find there the hamlets called Mugutang, Falun in the Lachen Valley, which you can see here, Lonak, etc. The vegetation is very rare. This region constitutes the grazing area for yaks and sheep held during summer. It is there too that the Lachenpa were collecting the minor forest products before this activity has been forbidden by the Forest Department in 2000. I'm going to give a small presentation of the population. The data regarding the populating of North Sikkim Valley, that is to say Lachen and Lachung, are not very precise and clear. The sources we have been only oral. The few studies held on this matter showed that the Lachenpa should be the descendant of immigrants coming from the Ha region in the south of Bhutan. The Lachenpa society was composed in 2003 when I did my survey by 173 households, which means a total of a little 1,000 inhabitants. And it was divided, and it's still divided into clans, on one of each venerating a different god. Whatever the precise origin of the population, the inhabitants of Lachen are today all males and females named Lachenpa, due to their residence in the village of Lachen. I'm going to go more deeply in the governance system, which is called Dzumsa. The Dzumsa constitutes a local structure of territory management and especially of its resources, as well as a powerful farming organization of village practices. The Dzumsa is one of the most democratic shape of governance. It is in the same time a political entity represented by people in charge of the village organization and administration, and an assembly constitutes of a member of each household, generally a man, who represents his family during the council meeting. This is a Dzumsa meeting in Lachen. The Dzumsa of Lachen was in 2003 composed of 174 members, and since 1994, only 2 new ones are welcomed once a year in order to limit the number of members. In the old times, only the resident of Lachen could become member of Dzumsa, but it is no more the case, and today a non-resident of Lachen village can join the Dzumsa if he can prove his affiliation with the Lachenpa society. The Dzumsa is then managed by two people who are the equivalent of the village chiefs. They are elected for 1 year by the public. Here we can see the people election. And they have to maintain order and enforce the established laws. They are much respected people. They are assisted by 5 gambos, or advisors, and gapens, chosen at the beginning of their mandate for being at their service, and are notably charged to call for public meeting gathering in protesting Tritam Zumniao, which means join us for the meeting. We would like here to mention Piben Hanu Lachenpa, who expired 2 years ago and who was and who will remain one of the best and respected people of Lachen village. The people's order for meeting through the intermediates of Gapen and all members gather in the Dzumsa house building specially built for the assembly meeting. The Dzumsa's assembly meets and deliberates all important decisions regarding life and community practices, the economical strategy, and the territory management and its resources. These are taken by the Lena, which are the elected representative people and gambos, who inform the citizens during the public meetings. The Dzumsa meets especially when it is time to order for migration to the down of the valley or to give order for plantation. It meets for the organization of celebration, for the redistribution of the material or equipments offered by the government, or of the money from the common fund. So, first of all, the people have the duty to enforce the community life rules and to represent it, if necessary, to governmental authorities. Apart from their territory administrators' role and its resources duty, they are also the society administrators. In some cases, the people and the gambos could be called to do justice and to do police job in distributing fines to people who infringe established rules. The peoples organize also food collection for Lama during celebration period or wood collection for the funeral ceremonies. The Dzumsa get a public fund, essentially constituted by money from fines, from tenders and taxes. This public fund is for facing community expenditure and is redistributed around 3 times a year. If there is money left, it is equally shared between the different members. Every year, each family receives between 5,000 and 6,000 rupees. I'm going to deal a little bit with the religious practices, the role and the power of the lamas in the public's life. Then the Lachenpas are Buddhist by nature, and they also believe some animist spirits. They have also some animist beliefs, sorry. The village of Lachen includes 2 monasteries, 1 gompa and a chapel for women, Lunilanga. The main monastery located above the village counts about 50 adults members and students. The lamas are members of the Lachen households, and apart from ceremonies and from their activities at the monastery, they live with the family and cultivate their fields like any one of the other inhabitants of the Lachen village. The lama can be married, and generally they share the woman of the elder brother. The Chutempa represent here the equivalent of the people for the Gumpa, with the 5 Gembo lamas elected among the Yumse, on the same manner that the representatives of the villagers, they represent Gumpa within the Dzumsa assembly. Then, in addition to their religious role, the lamas have also a prevalent role in the development of the community activities. The Gumpa, let us say the lamas, has a strong power of decision. Each lama is member of the Gumpa's council, who receives each year half of the sum collected in the public fund of Dzumsa, and on this fact cannot be at the same time a member of Gumpa and a member of Dzumsa. The Council of Lamas is consulted in all the things relating to the public life. The Chotempa attends all the Dzumsa meetings, and the whole of the Lama is invited to the most important meeting and gives its opinion on the question of public interest. According to the type of decision which have to be taken, their vote can be determining. So responsibilities towards the Gumpa, it is him which must, by the way of the people and their assistants, organize the religious festivals, deal with the collection of butter for the lamps lighted each day at the monastery. The Dzumsa must also pay the monks for their service during the religious festivals. After this general presentation, I'm going to go furthermore in the traditional activities in the Lachen society, agriculture and pastoral activities. Nowadays, and in spite of the constant evolution of the system of production and its constraints, agriculture and breeding still constitute the dominant activities practiced by more than 90% of the households, either like principal activity or like secondary activity. The organization of the agricultural and pastoral activities depends entirely on the vertical movement that the inhabitants practice through the year from bottom up to the top of the valley and conversely. So, the agricultural and pastoral activities are, and the place where they are organized are strongly linked ones to the others. Originality of these practices is in the fact that the inhabitants move with their very whole family. This is what we can see here. And that they are establishing on various levels several months of the year to make graze their air and cultivate their field, where they have built a real house. So some of the households have up to 6 houses built in various places of the valley. During the winter, as from November, Lachenpa move with their herds towards the low area of the valley where the hamlet of Pimseka, Chupunpun, Dare, Menchitang, Rabum, Denga, Pubia, Latong are located. Then from Lachen, they are going down to these places and these places. Some of them are going in 2 times, here to here and here to here. Some are going directly to the down. Totally, this approximately concerns 70 households, 42% of them, spread in the various above-mentioned places. Let us note that today, a number of Lachenpa do not move any longer to the bottom of the valley and feed their animals on the pastures close to Lachen during the day and bring to them a food complement due to the lack of labor. For more of the concerned household, the shifting is the path of the elders, sometimes accompanied by the children, like we saw before on the photo. At the beginning of March, when fodder starts to rarefy at the lower level, some of these households live to an intermediate level between the bottom of the valley and Lachen. Here. At the end of May, it is the moment of the great summer transhumance. Most of the household migrate this time January with the totality of their members, either directly to Tangu, which constitutes the principal base of Lachenpa in summer, or stopping in some intermediate level where they have also house and fields. From Lachen, directly up to Tangu, or from Lachen to Sacham side, or Yatang side, then after to Tangu. The movements up to the top are followed by the near total of the households, approximately 80% of them. Only few couples having neither grounds nor animals, or those which have a permanent job in the village, do not migrate, making of Lachen an almost empty village for approximately 6 months of the year. The system is so pregnant in this area that the population have decided to relocate the school during summer to permit the children to follow class and their family at the same time. In 1969, a school was temporarily opened during summer in Yatang, but this one has been definitely closed between 1978 and 1980. On the same aim, one has been opened in Tangu in 1985. It is open from March to November and is counting between 15 and 20 students. After having passed nearly 6 months on the high-altitude pasture of more than 4,000 meters, the fodder starts to rarefy, and then it is time for the Lachenpa to go down to the lower levels. Each household is stopping exactly at the same places where they stop on the way up. End of October, the major part of the households is back in Lachen, having harvested on the various levels where they have their fields. In November, it is again time to leave to the hamlet down of the valley, and it is a new cycle which begins. As we can see, the dates of setting in culture or collecting coincide more or less with the transhumant dates, which reinforce this interdependence character between the two activities. Regarding the agrarian practices, according to the old persons of the village, the agriculture activity would be a relatively recent introduction, and if our data were right, that would correspond to the date of introduction of the culture in potato in the valley by the Danish missionaries, which is situated at the beginning of the 20th century. Therefore, the development of this activity would mean perhaps a reorientation of the activities of production and a possible adaptation of the inhabitants of the area to new economic constraints, and perhaps also the massive loss of animals or the increase of population. However, we find at each level more or less the same type of agriculture. Only the farming cycle and the days of sitting in culture vary, and this according to the altitude. So, the Lachen Pass cultivate potatoes in combination with fodder vegetables such as beets or turnips used to feed the animals during winter, and vegetables of consumption such as peas and spinach. The corn culture in the south and the barley in the north are marginal today. Whatever the level of the culture and cultivated varieties, everywhere the size of the fields is rather small, and the Lachen Park carry out the same kind of agricultural operations with the same kinds of tools, except in Tambu and Biamze, where the fields are a little bit bigger. The various cultivated plants, potato, turnip, and radish primarily, require full care, which limit the number and the frequency of the agricultural operation. On a general point of view, yields are quite not very good in Lachen Valley. It varies from 15 tons per hectare in the poorest area to around 50 in the best ones, with an average yield which is situated around 20 tons per hectare. Still today, more than 90% of the households practice agriculture on one or several levels of the valley. The major part of them is today self-sufficient in potatoes, which constitutes, with rice and meat, the base of the food of the Lachen Park. A significant part of these households are also released from this excess that they are selling inside the community or in the market of Mangen or Gentok. Regarding the pastoral activities, it constitutes the origin, the principal and exclusive activity of Lachen Park. But since the closing of the border with Tibet and the reorganization of the activities which followed, the breeding constitutes only an additional activity, getting to the population only the resource permitting to face their need. Today, the major part of the livestock is made up of bovines, each household having a minimum of 2 animals, which makes a total flock of a little under 1,000 heads. With around 50 heads, sheep constitute 17% of the total livestock. Lachen Park breed goats, mainly for sale, only for sale, but with 189 heads in 2003, it represents only 6% of the Lachen Park livestock. They breed also horse and some zoo, mainly used for transport of goods during their various seasonal movements. A weak part of the population, around 20%, generally the richest households as yak. The yaks and sheep are primarily bred for meat, milk and wool. In October-November, Lachen Park practice shagio. It is the moment to kill animals and to store the meat. However, the size of the herds seems to have considerably decreased due to the closing of the border and some very rough winters. The biggest Lachen Park cattle was composed in 2003 of 110 heads. Today, yak and cows bovines population in Lachen is approximately the same, whereas the first were very predominant 35 years ago. Lachen Park still did not reconstitute their livestock today, which can be allowed to the lack of reproduction practices and can be also due to the lack of winter pasture, direct consequence of the crossing of the border with Tibet. To the summer movements, which does not require order from the people because the grass did not grow yet, the wintering obeys to rules stricter than each one must respect. Indeed, During the summer, the grass grew on the public land in the bottom of the valley, and to give to each one the same chances to make graze its heirs, displacement toward the south are ordered by the people, and all starts to go down on the same day, generally at the end of September. If one of the members does not respect the order and goes down before the others, a fine is given, whose amount is fixed by the people and immediately deposited in the Zumsa fund. In parallel, the household who do not go up to the grounds of altitude in summer and whose herd remains in Lachen must pay a tax to the community, giving them the authorization to make feed its herd at the village during summer period. The collection of fodder for winter obeys to the same logic. The population must await the order of the people to go to collect grass on the public territory. So, the system of production constitutes in Lachen a traditional economy based on the subsistence farming of the products of breeding and agriculture and on the sale of in excess inside the community. I'm going to try to show you how the Zumsa and the Lachenpa society is facing new constraints and how they manage. The Lachenpa society must face today many changes, particularly induced by the pressure of the government increasingly present. After closing the border, Lachenpa underwent a first phase of reorganization. Before 1959, the majority of the Lachen households practices a flourishing trade with Tibet. They supplied primarily eating wood collected around Lachen, rice and fruit coming from Zonggu, and exchanged them in Tibet against butter, covers or oil, sheep and salt, which they resold at high price in the Indian bazaar of Kalimpong or Siliguri. Another consequence of the closing of the border with Tibet was, as one saw, the massive loss of yaks and sheep, which remained stocked in Chinese side and which Lachenpas could never recover. This induced a reorganization of the livestock of Lachen. In parallel, the closing of the border involved the loss of pasture zone, the Lachenpas sending before feed their herd in Tibet during the winter and receiving the heirs of the Tibetans on their grounds of altitude during summer. Another phase of reorganization has appeared with the deployment of an important army contingent in the area, reducing the freedom of the population to move on their own territory. Today, in some places, such as Tallinn, also called Yangri or Sandong, army occupies the whole land. Without any compensation, it has destroyed houses, and the Lachenpa are not allowed to cultivate their fields anymore, which deprive them of a certain income. Initially, the president of the army brought a source of substitution income to the commercial activities that the Lachenpas practiced before the closing of the border. Indeed, in the absence of motor roads, the army used Lachenpa yaks and horses for the transportation of goods. However, this activity is today in the process of disappearance because of construction of roads in the area. The government plans on this subject to extend the road until Mugutang, which would definitely deprive Lachenpa of the income that they release from this seasonal activity. People have already protested several times for the cancellation of this project to the governmental authorities in Gangtok, but it has already been sanctioned and the project will go on very soon. The annexation of Sikkim by India in 1975 brought also a certain number of restrictions on the Lachenpa population who was deprived of freedom for which it enjoyed before. In particular, the government imposed a restriction on the eating wood collection, which constitutes an essential resource for the inhabitants of the area. Recently, in 2000, in order to protect this species, we consider threatened if we continue to carry out this not control taking away, the government has also prohibited the collection of minor forest products, which constitute an important source of income. The Lachenpas collected different types of juniperus used in the industry of incense stick, locally called juk or sang, and medicinal plants at very high altitudes, among which Jatamansi or Nardostachys grandiflora, locally named Pempe, was one of the main collective species. This activity, marginal before the closing of the border, has given them during 40 years considerable income, which allowed the majority of households to be self-sufficing. On the same manner, the central government planned to set up a new restriction relating to the rights of the yak patcher on the high altitude lands north of Tanggu. A note informing that all yaks would be taxed of 100 rupees by animals for rights of pasture was published in 2001. For the moment, it was not applied yet, but it would induce the total disappearance of air, the Lachen having affirmed that they would give up their animals if this law were put into application. Yeah, 2 minutes to finish. Then now, to face this new economic data, the Lachenpa have to adapt and to find new sources of income, because even if the majority still practice them, agriculture and breeding become marginal in terms of monetary benefits in the economy of the household. The households turn today to new activities, and more than 75% of them have at least a member practicing subsidiary activity, which constitute nowadays the principal source of income. The jobs occupied by the population are contractors or governmental jobs in attribution for which ZUMSA plays a determining role. The system of invitation to tender makes it possible at the same time to get funds in ZUMSA and to preserve work inside the Lachenpa society. The collected sum is deposited at once in the ZUMSA fund and after is redistributed. Some households turn to other activities such as trade and tourism. We counted in 2003 6 or 7 lodges in Lachen, and in 2008 it's around 20. Now, promotion of tourism through papers, which not exceeding 5 years ago, is also there, and there is a really big development of tourism in Lachen. More and more foreigners incoming. And in 2003, when I was there, I was told that I was working in some branch which haven't saw any foreigners for more than 50 years. This is not the case today. And I'm going to finish fast. The Arab, since Sikkim has been a part of Indian Union, many outsiders arrive in the area to work with the construction of road workers. They have only one temporary license to stay. And to face this surge of external population, ZUMSA has established a very strict and preserving laws. Indeed, no Nepali nor Tibetan or else household is authorized to settle and to buy ground in the area. They cannot become DEMSA member, and they are considered as foreigners. It is a manner there to preserve from external attacks and a manner to protect from the invasion. Then to conclude, I just want to say that the Lachenpa society and the activity practice are strongly formed and managed by ZUMSA, as you can see, which appears as a strong structure of territory management. As one saw, this endogamous structure has a strong capacity and a coordination role on the activities and social cohesion on a territory beforehand identified and defined. For a number of households, the agro-pastoral activities become very marginal, and the major part of their income today come from new activities. So can be put the question to know until when the system as it exists today could be maintained, and up to what point, as we showed here, the activities and traditional practices tending little to disappear. Thank you.